Are you in pain?
Um, I always purposely just try to numb myself from everything so that I don't feel pain. And I'll tell myself I don't care so that I could really believe it. But
Hey guys, and welcome to Little Black Bird 91. We're talking to you guys about, well, Safaree and Erica, and we're dealing with this topic of being emotionally numb. And so we titled this video, said, well, when men are emotionally numb, this happens. What happens? Well, when men are emotionally numb, they tend to burn the world around them and those in it so they can feel something. And that's the biggest problem. When they begin to burn the world, you get burned. You start feeling some type of way. And I understand that because it becomes evil, diabolical, nasty, cold, hurtful, toxic, soul destroying, in some of the behaviors that they exhibit themselves into. And that's some of the stuff that Safaree has jumped into with his relationship with Erica. Not that she's free from any accountability, but because we're holding Safaree accountable for his actions on the show. And so we're going to talk a little bit about it's emotionally numb and how it affects relationships. So if you're new to the channel, like it, share, subscribe, click on that bell button for notification of the uploads. We appreciate you guys. Stay locked and stay loaded. And for those of you returnees, we know what a mono is. You got the minerals. You got the minerals. Stay hydrated because the streets out there are hot. Yes, you just heard Safaree talk and say, and the question was asked, are you in pain, Safaree? And he goes on to say, look, I feel numb, right? And I don't want to feel the pain. So I do things not to feel the pain, in a sense, right? And so this is a classical emotionally numbness. Emotional numbness is a state of being in which you are not feeling or expressing emotions. A lot of men become very stoic in some of the issues that they go through in life as a child, and they learn how to mask that pain because the world tells us that men should be strong. And the patriarchy, or whichever you want to call it, the system, I would like to call it, I'm not going to say patriarchy, the system that we live in today in this modern society says men should be strong. And one of the ways that we fail to acknowledge is that being strong does not mean we don't have to acknowledge how we feel, nor does it mean that we can't express how we feel in terms of emotions. It just means there's a way that we should navigate life in a particular way. When it comes especially to relationships, there's an emotional brunt that we have to take on board and sometimes protect our family from certain things. It doesn't mean we shouldn't express, doesn't mean we shouldn't talk, doesn't mean we shouldn't be able to voice how we're actually feeling. It just means we have to have a bit more time and a bit more season when we release it to do so. Okay. So again, emotional numbness is a state of being in which you're not feeling or expressing emotions. And emotional numbing is a mental and emotional process of shutting out feelings and may be experienced as a deficit of emotional responses or reactivity. And as you see from Safaree's responses there, not much reactivity in terms of his actions, but we. So the process of being emotionally numb, as you hear Safaree, you can tell by his body language first and foremost. Look how he's seated, glasses, shades on. He has to take it off a little bit later on. You can tell that he just seems to be either over it or just hasn't really processed and gone through it. And so this is emotional numbness that tends to happen with people who've been through overawing traumas in their childhood, even in their adulthood, and have learned to detach and distance themselves from their actual feelings so they don't feel, because there's pain in the feeling. And if they feel that pain, they would have to then begin to address the situation. So, it's when we begin to be emotionally numb, it's oftentimes meant to be temporary. But what you can find is people use it as a defense strategy to remove themselves from the emotional, physical pain they're feeling in time. The pain has to go somewhere, though. It's stored up, but it has to go somewhere. And oftentimes it comes out in these behaviors. You hear me talk about emotional regulation quite a bit on this channel. And in emotional regulation, you're talking about understanding, processing, and expressing. And I always say when people fail to express verbally, they tend to express physically. And I think that's what's happened with Safaree in the Erica Mena situation. He's been expressing himself physically in the relationship, and that expression is a poor one because it doesn't encapsulate how he actually feels. And oftentimes we play very defensive positions because we're trying not to get hurt. We're trying not to get played. We're trying not to be vulnerable, and that leads us to do acts that are unkind and are toxic and dysfunctional and leading to sometimes what we call evil as well. And so with Safaree, definitely being emotionally numb, what you're seeing is this lack of care for Erica, or at least a lack of interest in some of the things she's going for. Now, I do believe that Erica, with her aggressive, sometimes manipulative kind of energy that she might bring to the table, can be a distancing, can aid to the distancing. But sir, the abandonment, the leaving of her, the child that she birthed, both of them for you, and you not being so close with her. Now, those things are different. Those things are because you're emotionally distancing yourself. And as much as I believe that she may be a little bit aggressive at points, and maybe rude at points, this doesn't serve for the reason why you distance yourself. You distance yourself because you want to feel nothing. You don't want to have to address you and address the past you in order to go forward and move forward in these relationships. Now, no one says you have to be with Erica again, but what it does mean is you got to take some accountability for the actions you perpetrated, right? Just because I'm explaining how emotionally numb works, doesn't mean that you get away with it. What we're doing is just expressing how you feel. Sometimes when we talk about emotional numbness, some of the feelings you experience are an inability to fully participate in life, a failing to access your feelings, feeling distant or detached from others, feeling flat, having difficulty experiencing positive feelings such as happiness, losing interest. Apologies about that. So, in those moments, what you'll find is, you're with Safaree, as you can see. Let's watch a little bit more.
There's pain.
It's obvious me and Safaree will never be. I was in the hospital bed.
Look, some people will say, he doesn't care, he's evil, he's da da da. I think a lot of times when people are emotionally numb, and the quick word is he's a narcissist. It's like, yo, not everyone's a narcissist, B. And you should chill. Not everyone's a narcissist. Sometimes what it really is, what it boils down to is that individual, it's emotionally numb, and because of their emotionally numb, they've detached themselves from the actual actions, meaning they don't feel when they do certain actions, and unfortunately, you're on the end of their emotionless actions. This is why emotions are important. This is why feelings are important. This is why being attached to your feelings is important. Not that it's overriding you, but it's important to be able to have some ability to attach yourself to them, so that there's a feeling of remorse, guilt, a feeling of happiness, joy, etc., sadness, grief. You can feel these things, and when you feel them, you can begin to identify, and also as well, it can begin to be a curb to some of your behaviors. Without it, you can really go far and do some madness. So I think what we see with Safaree is this emotional numbness. And if you're suffering with that as well, listen, what you need to do is sit on the bench and heal. What you need to do is take some time out, and you need to start identifying how you actually feel. You need to actually start addressing some of the traumas that you're facing. That may mean you need to get therapy, you may need to get coaching, whatever you want to call it. You may need to get all of those things, but help yourself by sitting on the bench. Relationship isn't the time for you. But if you're already in a relationship, go seek therapy. Don't lose a good relationship if you're in one because you're emotionally numb. You know what I mean? So yeah, with Safaree, that brother, he probably doesn't even feel safe being able to express themselves. And actually, I'm going to talk about that in part 2, how there was a lack of safety in that arena for him to actually express how he actually felt. You want to know what he's thinking, and yet you don't provide an arena for it? What do you expect? Like, share, subscribe, click on that bell button for notification of uploads. We appreciate you guys. Stay locked and stay loaded. See you soon.
Black, you know what